very, very special guest today, all the way from Israel. We have Francois Mikael, and I hope I pronounced that right. Again, in the Lions Den, a Radical Republicans live show, she joined us about 3 years ago. And some things have changed since then, and she's back in the Lions Den to give her very knowledgeable perspective on things spiritually. And that's what she does. She is the author of three booklets called The Connecting Dots. It's about 500 pages long. How are you? How have you been?
I'm good. Thank you. I'm very good, actually. I just wanted to mention that my name is Françoise. Because François is for men. And Françoise is like the female version.
See, there you go, Françoise.
Right. Yeah, it's very French, I know. So thank you so much for having me on the show. I really am very pleased and honored to be here and to have this talk with you and with your audience.
Yeah, well, very good. Yeah, they're excited to have you back. So, I tell you what, introduce yourself to the audience because some people didn't see you last time on the show. And of course, like I said before, you can introduce yourself better than I can.
Okay, so I was born and raised in France, in Paris mostly. And I studied in New York at Yeshiva University. And then I moved to Israel when I was 20 years old. I moved to Israel out of ideal. I was very religious at the time, and I really believed that it was important for me to join the building of the rebuilding of the Jewish nation and to contribute to a nation that would be really, based on the values that I believed in, of equality, of brotherhood, of love, and support and everything. And that's really, what drove me to Israel. Basically. And I've been living here since then. And along the years, I've started to see things in a different light, slowly. And, with the corona, it really burst into a really big picture, which is part of the wider picture of what's going on in the world. But then I could really, see more clearly what's going on.
Right. Okay. Because I noticed you used the word used to and believed. And,
right? I definitely went through a journey. Definitely.
Okay, so some people want to. Okay, let me ask you this first of all: were you affected by the Iranian missiles? Because I have some questions people want to know. Being in Israel and stuff, how bad was that for you? Because I know they targeted Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and Haifa really, really bad. So what about you in your area?
So I live in the north, like about almost 1 hour north of Tel Aviv. And we had alarms going on, and we had some bombing also. It was bad in the sense that, it really disrupted our lives. But I want to say that after the corona, I see things very, very differently. And I've seen how, making people afraid, it can create, a kind of surrender to the authority. And I could see definitely how in Israel, they try to scare the population. Okay, now not only do we have alarms, sirens, we also they got into our phones, and now we have sirens into our phones. So which is really
like we have here, like the emergency broadcast system. We have that, and they have that capability to broadcast that to our phones if something was to happen. And so I had put up a post because I had pulled it down. No, actually, one of my friends had sent it to me, and I guess there's this post, run to safety, sort of like we got missile alarms, and so all of that is coming to. That's like 10 million. Everybody get those in the entire state, right? Those broadcasts on their cell phone.
Yes, but I see this as another step into controlling the population and getting into their personal lives, because I think the sirens are enough. We don't need to have, I don't want to have somebody getting into my phone without my permission. You know, it's like with the corona, they said, you know, it's for your security. It's, you know, for your safety, for your health. You know, it's okay. I can take care of my health. You know, don't decide things for me. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I think that the sirens are enough. But obviously in Israel, you know, I posted something about it and people said, you know, no, it's good, you know, and it's the same people who stood online to get the shots. Okay. So there is like, you know, part of the Israelis are awake. They understand that we're being manipulated on many levels. I mean, I will speak in my name. Okay. After the corona, I understood that the government was willing to administrate poisonous shots to the population, like in every other country. Okay, in the States also, in France, you know, I'm aware of what's going on in other places. So it means that our governments all over the world were willing to kill the population. Okay, that's the fact, you know, because now we know.
Yeah, and we're finding out.
You know, and we know that it's poison. There is a 500 pages document that was released from the Congress, you know, after 2 years of research about what happened, you know, during the COVID period. And, you know, it really did more bad than good. And it's, you know, whether the masks or whether if it's the, you know, the quarantine, everything was really for the worse. So we understand that. Like, I understand that if I had the information that I had, I'm sure that my government had those information too. And still they decided to jab everybody, to enforce, you know, very strict laws. And they passed on some very dictatorial laws in Israel. Okay. And people lost their jobs and, you know, it was horrific. So we're still, you know, that's the same government that's running Israel. And I'm not saying it's the same government because it's Netanyahu. I believe that if it was anybody else, you know, Lapid or Gantz, or I don't know if you're familiar with the names, but like anybody else of the so-called leaders, okay, it would be the same, because I believe that those leaders are basically obeying the orders of another party. Because if you see what happened during the corona, I mean, for me, the corona was really, really an eye-opener. And I saw that there is some kind of synchronization between all the leaders of the world. They all do the same thing to their populations. So there is somebody who's giving orders from above or from behind the scenes.
Right. Well, you know, that happened here too. You know, as you know, in the United States, we definitely had the mandates during the Biden administration here, the mandates, and people getting kicked out of the military for, you know, not doing it. I believe we have well, you can actually correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have more rights here in the United States because of the Constitution, you know, and different things like that.
We don't have a constitution in Israel.
Right.
And one of the laws that was passed was that the prime minister is entitled to take any decision without the consent of the parliament or the court. So basically, and this law is still in function. It's still happening. So any day, whoever is in charge of the country can make a decision that's irreversible, because he's the only person who decides, which is not very democratic in my, in my opinion. And it's still there. And many other laws as well, which are also frightening. Okay, they used the COVID to introduce a new set of laws that really negate people's rights, citizens' rights. So when I understand that this is what happened, then I don't have trust in the government anymore, whoever the government is. I mean, I personally do not vote already many, many years. I used to vote for Netanyahu. Like 20 years ago, I voted Netanyahu. Okay, but I woke up and I stopped voting at all, altogether. Because I understood that in Israel, and I believe it's not, far from the truth in other countries. I know, at least in France, for example, that it's the same man whose name is Attali. His first name, for some reason, I can't remember. But he's the guy who has been accompanying every single president for the past 40 years. No matter if it's a right or left president, he's always there.
He's
Okay,
there.
so what does that
He's
mean?
the handler. He's what we call the
Exactly.
handler.
So what does that mean? So you see, it's like I'm not a politician, but I'm observing and I'm using my mind. Okay, I had a teacher that I loved very much. Maybe you've heard of him, Bob Proctor. Okay, he's like a mentor, and he used to say that 2% of the population thinks, 3% think they think, and 95% would rather die than think. Okay,
right.
That's what he said, and I feel it's very true, and that's why I think we're at a time where we're put against the wall, and we have to decide if we want to continue stop thinking, like not thinking, as most of us have been doing, or if we want to connect to our divine pole. Okay, we have a divine, like we have let's say a materialistic pole, a matter pole, and we have a divine pole in us, two polarities. And I see life as moving closer and closer to our divinity. Okay, but as we've been living, at least since I'm on earth, as we've been living, we have not been living according to our highest faculties.
Right.
We've been led to do things like a herd. We're told, do this, we do this, go to school, we go to school, go to university, you spend your life, paying your mortgage. And that's what people have been doing. And they don't even realize that it's real enslavement. So I think that now we're put in front of a situation where God is kind of telling us, now, guys, you have to decide if you really don't want to think. There is a way that's open for you. It's called becoming a cyborg, a hybrid between a computer and a human. And this way, believe me, you won't have to think. You won't have to bother. Okay. The other possibility is that you raise your awareness. And I think that what's going on in the world is really pushing us to raise our awareness and to become closer to who we truly are in our essence. And I think that, that means that we're in a kind of consciousness shift, and we have the opportunity more than ever to really open our hearts and our minds and re-become who we're meant to be human beings, who were created in the image of God. Which means to be, full of love and kindness, and to build societies that are very different from the alienated societies that we live in, where millions and millions of people live on anti-depressant, anti-depressant drugs,
medication,
and
mind altering, mind altering. So because that's what God made us for. He gave us the ability to think, right? That makes us different from the animals. And it's funny because like 2 weeks ago, I played a video here on the show from Bonhoeffer. It was called Modern Stupidity, because like I say, people would rather just follow the herd than think for themselves. And people like us that think for ourselves, like, for example, I say, Netanyahu is bad. Netanyahu is a dictator. He's bad for Israel. 74% of people in Israel are bad. It's not talking about Israelis, but the government. I speak about a lot about the Netanyahu and the government. And, I get called a anti-Semite. I get called, well, you don't love Israel. Israel is the chosen people of God, and you're against God. I mean, just all of this stuff, right? I'm like, what am I talking about? I'm talking about Netanyahu and the government. And so you just said that Israel basically, now if I say this, I would get, called all kinds of names, but you basically said a little earlier that Netanyahu is a dictator. He's a dictator, basically.
I want to try and not speak personally about people, but I want to stick to the facts. If there is a law that is a regulation that is still that is still active, that says that if somebody gets arrested, they cannot use their lawyer, or if somebody or that the people who enforce the law can get into apartments without a warranty from a judge and just burst into an apartment, that's not democratic.
Right.
Totally.
Exactly.
So I want to say that, before that people start calling others names and accusing them of this or that, people have to look at the facts. And the problem is that people don't look at the facts. They just look for facts that reinforce their beliefs. Okay? And what I can tell you is that some people have beliefs that they've had since they were 5 years old, and they're still living by those beliefs. Because if anybody, let's say an American who's born in America, was born in, I don't know, in another place in the world, in a different family, they would have different beliefs.
Different beliefs and views, right.
You understand? Right. But people don't want to know the facts. They just want to reinforce, to consolidate their beliefs. And that's really sad, because part of growing up, part of evolving is really to question your beliefs, because most of our beliefs are not really our beliefs. They're our parents' beliefs, our great-parents' beliefs, our great-grandparents' beliefs.
What we've been taught in school, what we've been taught in church, what we've been taught in the media.
And societies. Exactly. And I think that what should drive us is really to try and become the best version of ourselves, which means the best human beings we can, because I think that's what really gives happiness to people. The more we get the closer we get to our true nature, to our true essence, and the happier we are. I don't think people are happy by playing something that they're not. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think that to be who we truly are, we really have to ask ourselves questions and to adopt what serves us and to reject what does not serve us, in the sense that it doesn't make us evolve in our better self. And about anti-Semitism, I want to say that there are a lot of people who are awake who are anti-Semitic, and it's true. Okay, and I'm not judging them. Okay, but what I'm saying is that if we understand that our awareness creates our reality, our personal as well as our collective reality, then we have to be careful about what we hold in our hearts. Because to hate people just because they're people doesn't make sense. And I had this conversation with a friend from Facebook who is from Europe, and we built a friendship over the COVID period. And then at a certain point, he started posting some really, really anti-Semitic stuff. And then I spoke with him and I called him on the phone and I said, you know, what's going on? So he said, yes, the Jews this and the Jews that. So I said, who are the Jews? Like, what Jews are you talking about? So he said, yes, the bankers. I said, okay, how many Jewish bankers are there? Like, I'm not a banker. My neighbor is not a banker. You know, like, who are you talking about? So there might be some Jews who did some bad stuff, like there's some Christians who did some bad stuff.
Absolutely, right.
Okay, and we cannot hold a whole nation responsible for 100 or 1,000 or even 10,000 people who behave in a wrong way. Okay, and I think that it's really, but what I've come to understand is that, at least in Europe, it's very much rooted in the belief that the Jews, you know, we said it's a show with no censor. So we're talking about everything in an open way, okay?
Right.
So in Europe, at least, and I'm from France, you know, to remind you. So I've really come to understand that a lot of Christians were raised with the belief that the Jews are responsible of the death of Christ, which I'm not saying is true or untrue. I'm not getting into this, but we're talking about something that happened over 2,000 years ago. And still, some people, like, they hate Israel and they want Israel to disappear from the map of the world. And when you speak with them and you scratch the surface of things, you see that basically they hate Jews. And why do they hate Jews? Because of the upbringing they have of hating Jews because of what happened 2,000 years ago, which doesn't make sense. Okay, but people are caught up into their beliefs, and they believe that their beliefs are their personality and part of their identity, and they cannot get rid of it. But basically, all this hatred, which is, it's pure hatred, and it really it's part of what's creating the chaos that we see in the world. Because as Einstein said, he said, and by the way, there are some Jews who were good Jews too, as we all know.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So Einstein said that the energy is what controls the particle. Okay, like the field, he said the field is the sole governing agent of the particle, which means that energy governs matter. Our feelings, our thoughts are energy. And that's what creates our physical reality. That's a fact. That's quantum physics. And today, quantum physics is what all the new technology is based on. So it's not like esoteric marginal knowledge. Okay. So what I'm saying is that we're at a time when we have to really think about what choice we want to make. If we want to become cyborgs, not to think and just to go with the herd and to keep on going with the same hateful feelings, or if we want, on the contrary, to think, to evolve, and to become, the more divine part of who we can be. And that's really where we are at the moment. And
the transhumanism is a real thing.
Exactly. And the globalists, they think that they're playing the game, but they're just the tool in the hands of the creator to really sift, to make this filtering of who's going to go where in terms of their, consciousness. Because people's will, we're in a world of duality where people have the freedom of choice. So they can choose. They have the choice. That's the rule of the game here. So if people want to just, do what they've been doing and run with the same subliminal programs that are creating havoc in the world, then the world is going in that direction. But thank God, there are many people who are really doing a very, very profound inner work. I don't know if you've heard people like Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton. Okay, these people are really leading a movement of awareness, and also I don't want to forget what's his name. This is other guy. I forgot his name. I mean, there are a few guys like this who really are, and Abraham Hicks, like they're doing really great job to bring people back to their true inner self and to their connection to source. Okay, and when we understand that all this world is really one, we're all expressions of the divine, and our differences makes our beauty. They make what makes us interesting, what makes our value. Because if we were all the same, everybody looked the same and spoke the same, it would be so boring. So really,
well, yeah, absolutely. But okay, so here's what people see. I understand that globalists are pretty much in control of everything, and they put out what they want to put out. The wars and everything. So this is what people see right now. Let's just take the Israel-Gaza situation, Palestinian situation. Okay, so this is what we see. We see, this is what we hear. Okay, Hamas is attacking Israel. Israel is attacking Hamas and killing a bunch of Palestinians. They're pushing Palestinians off their land. It's a genocide. So we hear all of this stuff, right? And I'm not there. I haven't been there. I see pictures. I see videos. You mentioned something about a green screen, right? So a lot of it, could be true or not true. Give us your perspective on that, and if you could shed light on what's really, I guess, happening there, because us that haven't been there, we don't know. We hear what's on the news, we hear what's on the internet, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I want to say that really it's very, very troubling, because we are at times where we cannot really know what's going on. Like people who say they know, they don't know, they believe. We don't really know, to the point that even, let's say, there was a building that was bombed in a suburb of Tel Aviv, and I have a friend who lives in that suburb. I asked her, can you please go and tell me if the building really was bombed? Because I don't believe anything. You know what I'm saying? Right. I don't believe anything. I know that soldiers got killed in Gaza, because I know families personally. That's the only thing I can know. I know that the Nova thing took place. I've treated people. I'm a post-trauma specialist. I've treated people who were in Nova. So I heard firsthand what happened in Nova. But that's the only thing I know. The only thing I know is what I see. What I don't see and hear myself, I don't know. And
Right,
I
so your
cannot.
media is pretty censored there as well.
The what?
Your media, the news is pretty
I see the
censored.
media as the arm of the, like, you know, they're just an extension of the Israeli propaganda. I don't believe the news are the news. They're not news. If you look at like all the Israeli channels, they speak about the same events. They have a script of
We
what
have
to
what
say.
we call the Operation Mockingbird is what it's called here in the United States, where all the news channels, they broadcast the same script, the same thing. We've had a big
Exactly.
monologue, and someone put it up on the screen at the same time, and they're talking the exact same propaganda,
Exactly.
exact same thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, if you understand that there are so many things happening in a country, okay, I'm just talking about Israel. There are so many things. Why do they focus only on the bad? Why do they pick only those specific bad things and not other things? Because it's an agenda. It's all part of an agenda. Israel is not run by Israel. Israel is run by another force that runs both the Israelis and both Israel and the Arab world. It's the same force behind the scene that runs the whole show.
I mean, I know we had a conversation because you mentioned that in our conversation, you mentioned that the deep state, that the Israeli government and the Arab government actually work in conjunction together.
Yeah, that's my belief. First of all, there was an article in Haaretz, which is like one of the main Israeli newspaper, where it said there was a
people
quote.
Say that's like
Netanyahu.
People say that the Harris is like the MSNBC here, which is basically a totally, let's say, left leaning.
I understand.
Or
I
whatever.
agree.
I mean, so
I
that,
agree.
and then you have the Jerusalem Post. That's the other way. So
I agree. I agree. As I said, I personally believe that there is no right and left in Israel. And we've seen it during the COVID. Okay. How did we see it? There was this minister who was supposedly from a very humanitarian party, and he was talking against what was happening in the government. And then there was the election, and he was part of the government. He became the minister of health, and he became a dictator himself. So when when people, what do I mean by that? I mean that there were rules that were not rules of of the democracy. Okay, what we lived during the COVID in Israel was really it was really a real oppression. Whoever agreed to that, it was real oppression. For example, they closed, like I like to dance Latin dances, okay? So they closed all the clubs for those who didn't take the jab. So some people really felt depressed, but some others, like myself, we said, okay, so we're going to dance on the beach. Like, we don't need, and I created a big party with classes before, on 3 levels, and people came from all over Israel to dance on the beach because we refuse to be oppressed. You understand?
Oh, absolutely.
But many people lived this period as real oppression. The Israeli population is being oppressed and they don't even realize it. Even the fact that in Israel, there are news on TV and on the radio, like not on TV, but on the radio every hour. And there are flashes of news like every 15 minutes. People, are totally brainwashed.
Right.
And they don't even realize it. When I tell people, so stop listening to the news. No, I can't. I must know what's going on. So it's like they're addicted. So it's like they're asking to be beat. It's like somebody's beating them up and they're holding the hand that's beating them up. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like, so it's very difficult. Most of the Israeli population doesn't have a clue what's going on. They don't
that's
have
the same here in the United States too, because like I said, a lot of people did get the jab. I was, of course, not one of them. And we couldn't go to restaurants. They closed the restaurants. They closed churches. I mean, it was a total brainwashing, a total psyop, what we call a psyop of brainwashing of the people, and the number of people that actually fell for that, and like I say, took the jab and just saw this for saying that it was the best thing because the government was telling you it's best. You need to take it to save humanity. I mean, just all of this stuff. So it's good. It's good to know that that it happened. Of course, it was worldwide, and I knew that. But but to hear you say that, and I know you said it before, but other people joined the show since last time. But to hear you say that, I think it makes it even more real to the listeners here that it just didn't happen here in the United States.
No, it did not happen. But I think what it shows is that there is a hand that runs all the governments. That's the deep state.
Yeah. Wait. Deep state. There's a deep state because you say, are you called a conspiracy theorist in Israel?
Yeah,
we call it conspiracy theorists because we mentioned the deep state. Of course, the deep state didn't exist. Now the deep state exists. So now there's a deep state in Israel too, right?
Well, I think it's the deep state that runs all the countries. I don't think it's only Israel. Yes, because we could really see during the COVID, it really opened, unveiled, the truth that there is a coordination, there is a coordinated action among all the nations of the world. And the countries that did not align with that, their prime minister was killed. In Tanzania, for example,
right.
6 months after he refused to believe in the what you call it, like they were putting something in the nose of people. What you call it? They were doing this test in
the swab.
COVID so he refused to do that. He said it's fake. 6 months later, he was not in the world anymore. And I think there were like 6 African prime ministers who were who disappeared in a few months because they refused to align with those directives of what do you call it? I know the name in French, OMS, like the health, the WHO, WHO in English.
WHO, okay, the World Health Organization.
Yeah. So these organizations, they are a proof, they're already a certain stage of one world government. And for example, the UN was created to kind of unify the governments. And before that, there was the League of the Nations, like in 1920 something, 26, right. I think. That was the precursor of the UN. And what was the name of their publication house? Lucy, yeah. Okay, and who was their main spiritual? Like they had the spiritual. They had some spiritual writings that were the foundation of their organization. Who was the leader of this of these writings? It was Bratislavsky, who was a woman. I think her name was Maria Bratislavsky. And she was an occult, a woman who was doing occult writings. She had a book called Satan and stuff like that. So that's where things are coming from.
Right. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Definitely the dark underworld running things. I've said before that this is Satan's world. Satan is ruling this world. He's controlling most of it anyway, because of course, like you say, people are not using their own mind to think. When we are, independent thinkers, we're the threat to the globalization, let's say the globalists, cultures of America, because we actually think, we ask questions. I get, I'll throw random questions out there because, like I say, I use my own mind. I'm an independent thinker. My soul, I guess you can say my soul is in touch with the universe, let's say. So I'll ask questions that may seem off the wall, or may seem really, really weird, or may seem, that I'm attacking, someone or something like that. But I'm just asking a question to get people to think, and I can't tell you how many times and how many people I get attacked by, because it's just not, what everybody else thinks, right?
Yeah,
so
it's very challenging. It's very challenging to live in a world where people think of themselves as advanced because of the technology that is very advanced, but who are not advanced on the consciousness level. Because to ask questions and to create a space where people are free, can feel free and safe to ask questions, is the basis of freedom. Okay, it's the basis
Right.
of
Absolutely.
freedom of thinking. If we don't ask questions, we don't get answers, and we don't move on. We don't progress. So it's very important. But when you said Satan is in charge of the world, I don't think so. I think that there is a duality, like there is a fight between light
It's
and
a fight. There's a fight.
there is a fight, but I want to believe that that God is in. When I look at nature, it's so beautiful. It's so full of love, so full of generosity,
Absolutely.
so full of beauty. I don't think Satan would have, created the world like that. And
no, I don't mean the world like that. I mean people in the world. Let me rephrase that. Some of the people, in the world, not really,
yes.
the world itself. No, God is over everything, and God allows things to happen because, like you said, we have choices. People have to make choices. It's how we're gonna, eventually get to heaven because we have to make choices, good and evil. So yeah, as far as that goes, I'm saying the governments, the people that are controlling our lives. Let's just say that.
I agree. The people are in charge. I also think that yes, it's a problem. They're on a different path, but that's why I believe that the solution is in consciousness, because consciousness is really working with energy, and energy is the pre-stage formation of matter. Okay, you understand? Like I think that in the material world we cannot do much because we don't hold the reins of the health system, the educational system, the finance system. It's not in our hands, and so we're very weak in that field. But if we play by the rules of energy, which is using our thoughts, our feelings, our intentions, then we can make a difference. And there are many scientific studies that have proven that when people get together with common intentions, they affect reality up to 76%. There is something called the Maharishi effect, which proved it over and over again. And this was published in very reputable journals, scientific journals. Okay, so I think this is really the way to go, to really, meditate together and to visualize the good, to stop talking so much about, I stopped talking about the bad. I wrote book, 500 pages. I have 5 more 100 pages that I didn't publish. I stopped. But I stopped publishing that stuff because I felt like I was giving it energy. I felt like the fact that people are exposed to it and speak about it and are afraid of it, then it kind of creates what I don't. It
it manifests what you don't want.
It nourishes the monster kind of thing. So I really changed. I made 180 degrees change, and now I'm really into positive thinking. And actually, I'm teaching a course on, according to Kabbalah wisdom, to Jewish mysticism wisdom and the laws of physics, how to maintain a high frequency so as to get out of the matrix. Because the Kabbalists, the Jewish mysticists from all the places in the world and from all the times in the world, they all said there is a way to get out of the matrix. And they knew these times that we're in at the moment. They knew it. What we're writing for you guys, so that you do the job when these times happen. And I can share with you what the job is.
Definitely share with us. And this is from the Kabbalah, you say from?
Yes. This is from the Kabbalah. And the Kabbalah is like the body of, it's the body of works, of books that have been written that are considered as Jewish mysticism. And what they all say is that joy is the key. Joy. Okay? They say that joy is...
And that's in the Christian Bible too, because there's a passage that says, joy cometh in the morning. So joy is.
Yeah, joy is the key, but they're not talking about joy, of just clapping your hands and singing,
Right.
which is not bad. I mean, this is also important. It's also good, but they're talking about joy that's connected, to God, meaning, a joy that comes from awe, the awe of the world, of, a joy that comes from appreciation, that comes from discovering, let's say, physics is fascinating. And through physics, I personally really got, wanted to get closer and closer to the divine, because I said, it's such an amazing world, and also when I read about animals, they're, what they do and how they're, how they function. It's so fascinating to see the amazing world we live in, and I'm full of gratefulness, and that fills me with joy. So that's the kind of joy that we're talking about, and that joy is really a power of alchemy, which means that it can really transform your reality in the physical world. That's what they say. And there are many texts. It's not one or two or three of them. It's like many of them say it. And so in this show, I really want to invite people to connect to this, to connect to their joy, because joy is really our true essence, because it's the essence of the divine also.
Right. I mean, and I find that too, and a lot of people tell you that people that go out in nature, right? Let's say, I feel my best when I'm out in nature, when I'm out camping or fishing or just walking through, and even on TV, you mentioned animals. I love to watch animal shows, right? I love to watch, things, the wild, and how they do things in the wild, and it's just so beautiful. And and I'm at my best, or feel my best when I'm watching those type things, because I don't watch the news either. I have a show, so I have to, get current events. I do that stuff. I get most of that from the internet, but I don't watch news. I don't watch local news. I don't watch any of that, because, like I say, it's just too depressing, right? It's very, very depressing. And I have a friend named Thomas Blackwell. He goes around the country and he gives these seminars on language, right? As far as language, meaning how you speak, how you change your language into to bring forth, the essence of life and good things in your life, because how you speak, it opens up things to the universe. So if you speak negatively, that's when you get negative stuff, and positive, so yeah, it's definitely connected. All of that's connected. The language, the feelings, everything, like you say, is all part of the joy, that you talk about there. So yeah, I think that's a good thing. Beautiful.
So I think it's important to speak about the solution, because we all know the problems, we all know the issues. And so it's important to know that the solution can come through our awareness. If we decide to make a change, to stop focusing on the negative, to stop nourishing ourselves from bad news. Do you think it's perchance that, it's by chance that all the news are always negative? It's just brainwashing to make people believe that the world is bad and to disconnect them from themselves and from God.
And that's what it is too. I mean, not to cut you off, but I've been all over the world. Right? I've been on every continent, been all over. I've been in Israel. I've been, pretty much everywhere. And everywhere where I've gone, the people are great. I've never had any problems with any of the people. It's these governments, and it's the governments, the propaganda, where Iran hates you because, and they hate Israel, and Israel this, and we hate. So it's all this stuff. So we have to bomb because of this. We have to do this because of that. And it's really not the people. The people are not the problem. That's why, when people say anything, I despise what the Israeli government is doing. I despise what's going on with Hamas or whoever is running, the Palestinians. It's the Israeli people and the Palestinian people that's caught in the middle that I care about. These are the ones that's suffering whatever conflict is going on, from, whatever view you get. Because like I say, you get one view, you get one side, depending on who you're listening to. So once we break away and get away from that, it's really all about people and how we really
Totally. I just want to give you an example. For example, in Israel, there were some really big demonstrations against Netanyahu. Okay. And so we thought, people thought that it's the people who are demonstrating, and so they're, voicing their anger and this and that, which is true. But who paid for those demonstrations? Who organized them? Who organized the logistics? Who paid for all the, what do you call it? All the
You got the signs. You got
PR.
You got the flash, the PR. We have the same thing here.
Exactly. So it's hundreds of thousands of shekalim, of shekel. Who paid for that? As it appears, it's the left. I mean, it's, what do you mean? I don't want to say the left because I don't believe there is right and left. But it's like, and I don't want to say names either, but it's like so-called left-wing people, and that got money from American funds. For example, there are funds, there are foundations in the States that pay for high-ranking officials from Israel to come to get education in, very prestigious universities, and then they go back to Israel and they start implementing the policy of that those institutions dictate. That's what's happening in Israel, which is very, very disturbing. So what I'm saying is that things are not the way we're told. Like, it's not like, I don't think that the Israeli government is really in charge of Israel. I think it's run behind the scenes. And I think that the Israeli leadership and the Arab leadership work together. For example, I can tell you that the head of the Hamas a few years ago, his niece came to Israel to get medical care. Israel agrees to pass the billions of dollars from Qatar. It goes through Israel. What I'm saying is, like, there are many things that are going on that show that it's not, normal. And even like at the beginning of the war, Israel was giving fuel to to Gaza. Okay, so
I've said that because
where do you
when
see
I'm looking,
stuff like that? You know what I'm saying? It's like a whole theater. It's a theater.
Right. And I've expressed, and I've said some things. I'll say something like, well, Hamas is on the payroll, meaning that they were created, from what I understand, they were created by the Israeli government to go against the PLO, and things like that. And they've created this Frankenstein type of thing, right? This boogeyman, sort of like we did with Al Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. So Hamas is the boogeyman.
With ISIS, the states also created ISIS. It's all behind the scene things that are happening, and the population need to open their eyes and to start understanding what's going on, and to stop being afraid of everything, and to stop getting engulfed into the drama of things. In Israel, there's so many dramas. Like, I posted something a few days ago. I said, so after the war with Iran was over, I said, okay, so what's going to be the next episode in the in the series of the Israeli dramas? It's like, because they don't stop. They keep on making people, afraid, and people are really, like, those who don't see what's happening, they're totally crumbling. I mean, and also they're crumbling the economy here. In many ways, like we pay prices here that are outrageous, and there are many families, their husbands have been in Gaza for a year, and they have babies at home, and the women can't do things on their own. It's like terrible human situations. And there's so many Israeli we say soldiers. Who are those soldiers? They're our brothers, our fathers, our sons, so like thousands, tens of thousands came back with, no arms, no legs, no eyes. This is really, changing people's lives in, terrible ways, and so many dead young people. And when we say, soldiers, you're talking about an 18-year-old guy who was, a teenager until he was 18. And now that he's 18, he became, a soldier. But they're, just young people. And they're being sent to war, which is also like, crazy. Why? Because the government puts the Israeli population into a terrible situation, like an unlivable situation. in the sense that there were all these hostages who were taken. So obviously the population, like the Israelis, want the hostages to be back. And so they agreed to have the soldiers go and get them. But, how can you really, how can you free hostages that are, underground and stuff like that? It was in advance, it was going to be a swamp. You know what I'm saying? Right. And people didn't see it. So, it's really difficult because they trust the government so much and they don't want to see it because it hurts so much, because so many people during all those years have lost their dear ones in Israel. Since the beginning of the state, there have been so many terrorist attacks. There have been so many wars. So everybody is wounded or killed in every family. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody has people who are dear to them who went through some really difficult and painful events. So that's why the Israelis don't want to believe. They don't want to believe that their government is oppressing them and putting them into those situations.
What would be the solution there? Because that's one of the things that we hear here in the United States. What would be the solution to end the conflict? And my thing is, one, you have to get the opposite side off the payroll. People think I'm crazy when I say that, but even you just, pretty much shed light on that, they started Hamas, and now this new group, Abu Shabab, or whatever the case, like say, I have to get into the news thing, because I read the Haaretz, I read the, Jerusalem Post. I do read those to get, some of my information. But what would be the solution there? Because I don't think they want a solution, because, like, say, you keep the people in fear, so you keep, using them, you keep using
of
the
course,
bodies.
Of course. And I want to tell you more than that. It started with the British.
Right.
This area of the world was ruled by the British and the French, like, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Israel. They were, called the Levant area, and they were run by the British and the French. And Israel, which was at the time called, it was an area. It has never been a country. It's important for people don't even know that, but it has never been a country.
And that's one of the things. That's one of the biggest things here, is that people don't realize that it wasn't a country until 1948, but it was, the area. It was an area. But go ahead.
Exactly, and most people don't know that. And there has never been a king of Palestine. There has never been Palestinian money, Palestinian courts. There has never been anything like that. It was just a desert area. And there are people like Mark Twain who went around and censored the population. And they're talking about like 500 people in, it's like, it's not millions. There were some Jews, some Christians, and some Arabs at any given time. I mean, since the Muslims conquered Israel, which was around the year 1000, but until that, it was the Romans, the Byzantines, and so many people conquered this area because the Jews were expelled from Israel by the Romans. So basically, there has really never been a country called Palestine, and therefore there has never been a Palestinian people. The Palestinian people was made up, again, for political reasons in the 60s. And if you take any encyclopedia prior to the 60s, you will not find Palestinian, like it doesn't exist. I checked it in different encyclopedias. There is no such thing. It was really made up in order to create more and more conflict in the area. But basically what happened is that the British, who put chaos and misery in every places they put their feet on, in every continent they went in, they always got the populations to fight and to kill each other. So they did the same in our area. What they did is that they promised this land to the Jews and to the Arabs. Okay, the same area. So there was a partition plan and this and that. In the end, Jordan was given to the Arabs and Israel was given to the Jews. Jordan is 5 times bigger than Israel. But still, there is no peace because they don't want to be a peace here. They want to continue to oppress the population and to, because they serve the force, they serve the darkness. They are servants of the forces of darkness. And that's what darkness does. Darkness oppresses and brings misery everywhere they can. That's their job. So if there is
there will be no peace there. I mean, I think the Bible even says that too, whatever. But there will be no peace there because
they don't want to. They created this conflict, so they're not interested in solving it. Okay, and they're fostering it in every possible way. And I just want to give another example that shows that they're working together. For example, there is this man whose name is Meshi Zahav. He was the head of an organization that is called Zaka. And this organization is like every time there was a terrorist attack, the people from this organization were on the premises very fast, and they took care of the dead and of the wounded and everything. So he was interviewed once on TV, and the interviewer asked him, "How come you guys get so fast? Like, are you in touch with the police? Like, how do you get the information so fast?" So he said, "No, we're in touch with the Hamas." And 2 months later, he supposedly hanged himself. Okay?
Oh, wow. Really? He said the quiet part out loud.
Okay.
He wasn't supposed to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm bringing you examples to show you that it's all a theater. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, they're just oppressing. They're just doing this to oppress the people. That's my view of things. And I'm not the only one. Like about the 7th of October, I'm not the only one. I saw immediately that it was not just the Hamas playing there. It was very
I mean, I say that here, right? And here's what I said about that, because knowing, I have a very dear friend that was an IDF soldier. She was and she's from Israel. She's Israeli, and she told me some of the things about the security systems that they have, and about the very special sensors on the fences, so all of this stuff that Israel has, on the fence line and stuff like that. And people talk about, how, they're the best, security forces. They have the best technology and all of this stuff, right? And so I'm like, well, when October 7th happened, I'm like, wait a minute, that's a false flag, what we call a false flag. They allowed that to happen because that would never should have never happened with their security forces being the best in the world, and the censors and they cut fences. They did some things that just didn't make sense at all.
Jérôme,
and it went on for 8 hours before they got a response. That would never happen. I mean, because you get a response from the Israeli military right away if something happens, not 8 hours later.
Not only if something happens, if there was a bird, like they were, there are girls
that's what she said. Yeah, it would shoot the bird, like on the fences.
Even the bird it touches the fence, you have like a patrol running at the bird, running there to see what happened. Yes.
Right. See, I said that because she said it too. She's like, no, the birds get shot on the fences because they're so censored, or somebody would respond immediately because of that. And man, and people just I mean, they totally, like I said, they don't think for themselves. I'm like, okay, well, if you say that this military and these people are the greatest in the world, as far as that go militarily, how did they allow that to happen for 8 hours? And,
so when you look at the facts, to me, it's obvious that it happened with very active collaboration from Israeli high-ranking people. And I said it since the beginning, but only now are there voices really coming up and from high-ranking army people saying this is not possible. And, it could never have happened if there was no collaboration from inside. And you just have to look at the facts to see that it's obvious. But unfortunately, again, the Israelis don't see it because they cannot admit that they're being played by their own leaders, because it hurts them so much and it frightens them so much.
Well, there's many Americans that believe the same thing. It's not just the Israelis. It's, I would probably say most of America believes the same thing. No, the Israeli government couldn't have been a part of that, because
Well, okay, but that's a belief. But then there are the facts, and if you want, I can give you a series of facts.
Yeah. Go ahead, give us some facts. We love facts on this show.
and everything I'm saying was in the press. Okay, so it's not like my opinion of things. Okay.
Right.
So first of all, this fence was considered like the most secure border in the world. Okay. Before they built the fence, there was a movie that was made by the engineer who was in charge of the whole thing, and he showed how this fence is invincible, how deep it goes into the ground, how, I don't know, like the top of the modern technology and this and that, okay? And the people who got through the fence did it with a tractor and with donkeys. And, it's like, what the hell is going on here? It was like incredible. Mm-hmm. Now you can see that what happened. I mean, I'm going to give you more facts, but just I'm thinking, what happened was so horrific. It was really done in a way to bring fear in people's hearts. Mm-hmm. It was so, cruel, inhuman, no words to describe it, and it really gave a great fear in people's heart. And therefore, a few months later, all of the north was evacuated. So you had like hundreds of thousands of people who were driven out of their homes because they were told that the Hezbollah was planning on doing the same thing that the Hamas did. So you had whole families who had to leave their homes and to come closer to the center. So what happened is that you had all the south periphery that came closer to the center, all the northern periphery that came closer to the center. So you have a much denser population now.
Correct.
Okay. So that's also something, it's like I can see, like when you look at the facts, you can see that there's things going on. There are movements that are pushing things in a certain way. And so in terms of facts for the 7th of October, so first of all, there was this fence. Then what happened is that a year earlier, they got, the Israeli government got like a description of what would happen, and they kind of dismissed it. They said, nah, it's not possible. But 2 months before it happened, the girls who sit at the border and who, they have special screens and they watch what's going on the other side of the border, they said, something weird is going on. We can see that they're training, for an attack. And their supervisor said, no, okay, you've already told us. We said, it's nothing, so don't bother us again with that. And they kept on telling them, alerting them. And then they were threatened. Those girls were threatened that they would be brought to court if they continued to harass their superiors. Okay. And there was this guy who was from a nearby kibbutz who used to listen. He had like a big apparatus that listened, that was able to grasp conversations from the Hamas. He spoke perfect Arabic. His material was confiscated a few months before by the Israeli high-ranking officers. Okay, why would they do that? Then there is this thing called Ain Roa, which is like the seeing eye, which is also, a name that that's reminiscent of the all-seeing eye, on the American bill.
Right, on the American dollar, yeah. The all-seeing eye.
So that seeing eye is like a device that was in the sky, and that kind of gave a global view on Gaza, okay? And this thing, for some reason, got damaged about a week before, and they did not, by chance it got damaged, it stopped working, and they did not change it. And then there was this patrol of combat soldiers who every morning they go around the fence and they check that everything is okay. They were told that same day not to patrol. Okay. And like, there's so many, I can go on and more. And the head of the secret service, the secret services or whatever, and the chief of the army, they were told about it at 3:00 in the morning on that day before it happened, and they were all by chance on the vacation in a far place in Israel, like they were not nearby, like the further south, in Eilat, which is like a place that's very far from there. So, and they didn't do anything about it. So it's like, I don't buy it. I'm sorry, it doesn't make sense to me. And that's it. Maybe because I was not born in Israel, then I'm not indoctrinated to believe in the government as being my savior or my father or something like that. But the facts are there. Okay?
But you've lived there long enough to see and understand.
But I'm not. But I think that because I know. Because I wasn't brought up in Israel.
You weren't brought up you say you didn't get there till you were 20, so you didn't go through the education, like you say, the entire indoctrination.
So it's like, I can step on the side and observe, which most Israelis do not do because they're just in this path.
Most Americans don't do it either.
I understand, which is really sad, because it cannot happen without the cooperation of the population. You see, like the population is being used, basically.
I mean, that's basically like, what happened here on 9/11, which I said was still a false flag. They, caused destruction. They, tug at the heartstrings of the populace in order to continue to, like I said, go to war and do the atrocities and, make, and like to drive people into where they want them to be to do whatever, they want to do where they left from, and I mean, a lot of people, here and that I spoke to, because you, of course, we of course wouldn't hear any of what you just said here in our news, because our news is censored, our news is controlled, as well. Our media is a total control system, and they would never. I mean, I haven't heard not one person on any of these shows. This is the first show probably that had someone that live in Israel, someone that is actually speaking the truth about the entire what's happening there, and especially on October 7th. No one here heard what you just said, as far as
Wow.
as far as on our media, our media would never say, well, you know what, they were on vacation, we didn't get stats on the fence. I knew because I have a friend that was an IDF soldier, and she told me a bunch of that stuff. Probably she shouldn't have, but it's public knowledge there. You never heard anything about this fence and how invincible it was, but okay, it became, able to be breached, and all of this stuff. Then, the atrocities, I guess, that happened. They took the hostages. We heard stories about babies in ovens, which I've never seen. I never saw, any pictures of that. So I don't know if that's true, but those are the types of atrocities that we heard here, because that gets the Jewish population here, very, very angry to go at Hamas, who's, like I say, is on the Israeli payroll, and I'll keep saying that forever, because they created them, but you never hear any of the truth stuff here, so that keeps the Jewish population and people that really believe in Israel on this side to, okay, well, we have to keep war, we have to keep sending money, we have to keep sending fighters, we have to bomb because of these bad guys over here. And you hear, like you say, they're working in conjunction with the government.
Yes, but it's very sad because the Arab population of Gaza is also manipulated, and they also don't realize it. But you have to know that, like, there were some Hamas people who did what they did, And also after that, there were a lot of the crowd from Gaza, even children who came with the axes and knives and stuff. And they started, continuing to kill people and to steal stuff. And it was really incredible because you could see, like, I saw footages of, hundreds of people going back and forth with stuff and no police, no army. And it was like, this is not possible, especially because their bases, they are like helicopter bases really nearby. So it doesn't make sense.
Oh, it was. So there are. See, this is the first time I've heard that helicopter bases was nearby that area, and it went on for 8 hours. And that's what I'm saying. It never would have went on for 7 or 8 hours or whatever it is. I say
yes,
8, some say 7.
Yeah. No, there were some terrible things that happened. It's obvious that there was cooperation from. I don't know if it's cooperation, if they planned it together. At this stage, when you understand that the government was willing to administer jabs with poison to the population, what does it mean? That they want the population to live? No. So then why are we so surprised that
So is this a genocide? Let's say, because I have questions, is this a genocide in Israel with the jab, because it's killing people, and then the war with, like I say, the Palestinians there, may be a debate, if there were people called Palestinians or if there were Palestinians. There's people there now, it's Gazans, they're Arabs, so it's Arab and Israel conflict or whatever. So is this a genocide on both sides? It's just, because what we see here, is that a lot of Arab people, Palestinians are getting killed, getting murdered more than I guess on Israel's side. So a lot of people are calling it.
But we can't know, Jérôme. So. We cannot know, because first of all, there is a lot of fake. I've seen a lot of fake. I mean, it's not new. Also, very often you can see that the Palestinians, I want to say Palestinians, the Arabs, they stage all kinds of situations where they say that they're being killed and murdered, and it's just they put ketchup on themselves and stuff like that. And there are like hundreds of footages like this. Okay, so we don't really know. Plus, with the green screen, we don't really know what's going on in Gaza. We don't know. We cannot know. We are at a stage, I'm telling you, 1 hour away from me, I didn't know if the building was down or not. And I could not, I had to send someone to check, because today I don't believe anything. And there is this guy who was in the army. It was like he received even a prize of defense of the Israeli government or whatever, or the Israeli whatever. It was like in 1990 something, and he wrote that he wrote that for example, the dome of what is it called? The dome, the dome thing, there is this
talk about the
Iron Dome. Iron Dome, okay. He said that the Iron Dome, for example, that's what part of the bombing is from the Iron Dome. That's kind of bombing itself. How can I know what's true? Like, I don't know if he's telling the truth or not. I have no idea. I'm not a ballistic specialist, so we have no clue what's really going on, and they can say whatever they want. We have no idea.
I did hear, during that situation in the 12-day war or whatever, I did hear that they were not allowing the reporters or any reporters there to actually report on that. And if they actually reported truth or reported what was happening, they were being threatened with jail.
I don't know, but I think that the reporters are not really reporting the news. They're as we said before, they're working according to an agenda. Like, we live in a world that is engineered. There was this guy Bernays, if you've heard of
Bernays.
him.
Oh yeah, I read a lot of.
Okay, Edward Bernays. He really taught how to mind engineer the masses. Right. And his teachings are still being used. His tools, his everything that he taught. He even taught, got pregnant women to smoke in the 50s. to present smoking as if it was like the coolest thing, for pregnant women. It's like, today with this guy, what's his name, Klaus Schwab, who is able to make people eat bugs. Can you imagine where are we going? You know what I'm saying? Like there are factories of birds, there are breeding places for bugs. It's like you would have said that in a few years ago. People would have said you're delusional to imagine that this what would happen. So we really are living in difficult times, and I think again it's difficult on the one hand. On the other hand, it's a time when we can make a big jump ahead if we stop putting our faith and our strength into all these puppets around us, and if we take ownership on over it again, if we take ownership of our sense of discernment, of our thinking, of our own godliness. And if we unite and we do kind stuff together and good stuff together, things that make us feel good and that recreate the humanity and brings people together. Like we're going to an age where AI is overtaking everything, and the virtual world is overtaking everything. But some of us, those who are aware, can make the shift, and we don't need to be the majority. We just need a critical mass, and people are working on it. I can tell you that there are circles of people all around the world that are doing work on themselves, on their beliefs, on their fears, on their hatred, on really trying to get rid of all the stuff that prevents them from being close to their divine side. And so I'm very optimistic, even though reality is challenging. I'm still very optimistic. And in
Israel, we
Israel,
have to remain optimistic.
Yeah, in Israel also, people are doing a lot of work. People are working on their traumas and their transgenerational traumas. From generation to generation, traumas are passed on. People are really doing a lot of work. So I'm hopeful.
Yeah, definitely hopeful on that too. And I know a lot of people here is working on that too. And what we call, they're waking up. I call this thing called the Stockholm syndrome. People are just still subservient and still they know it's wrong, or they have this cognitive dissonance. They know it's wrong, but they love their masters so much. They trust their government so much. And right now we're seeing a shift. Not really a shift, I guess, a rift between, some factions here in the government, people that believe, some certain things. And so, people are waking up to the fact, and because we are, worldwide, basically slaves to the master, for those that, really buy into that concept or really don't think for themselves. Those that do not think for themselves are the slaves, for sure. And those of us that don't, buy into the construct and think for ourselves. We're the enemy of the state. We are the threat to, what they want to bring. As far as someone said in the chat, the one world order, we've heard that for years, where, we're just all controlled, Klaus Schwab and these people say, you'll own nothing and be happy, right? That type stuff. And I don't buy into that construct. So, I'm hoping more people definitely wake up and work on these. So what exactly can people do? You have like I say, anything for people to be able to do to awaken themselves and continue to get rid of the negative forces.
First of all, I would encourage people to really get rid of their traumas, because traumas are the poles around which revolve all our negative beliefs and limiting schemes of thinking, of action and everything. So really traumas are the basis as far as I'm concerned, and it's important to go to specialists who really work with trauma, or specialists in trauma. The second thing that I would recommend is to to learn more about, things that are connected to our awareness. There's some great mentors, as I said, like Joe Dispenza, and Greg Braden, and Bruce Lipton, Bob Proctor. These are all people who really teach how to connect to your higher self. If some of your audience want to learn about the Jewish mysticism and physics way of dealing with the situation, basically I have a plan. Okay, I didn't tell you.
Okay. All right. Well, tell us about this plan.
I have a plan. I'll tell you what. My plan is to build a community of 3,000 people in Israel who will maintain a high frequency over a certain period of time, and they will be a critical mass that will help make the shift happen positively, meaning the awareness shift is taking place, whether we want it or not. It can happen painfully, or it can happen gracefully if we raise our consciousness. So raising our consciousness, as far as the Kabbalah says, is first and foremost to be happy. Because when you're happy, you're fulfilling the desire of the Creator who created this world for people to enjoy being created, for people to enjoy the world that He built. Okay? So either 3,000 people who will be who will maintain a high frequency for a certain period of time, then this will create the shift. And why 3,000 people? Because the strength, the power of doing together the same mental activity, in that case, to maintain high frequency, the power is exponential. And this is according to physicists who have done work like that and who have measured work like that. Okay, so if there are 3,000 people, it's enough to make a shift. So that's my plan. And so the community will be called I'm the Change.
I'm the Change. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and how do people here in the United States become a part of that? Because you say in Israel, 3,000 Israel, how do they become a part of that?
They can be the change themselves. They can decide to, first of all, I'm willing to have the course in English. Okay. If people are interested, it's a fascinating course because it really shows how we are creators, how we create our reality. Like, a lot of people say, thought creates reality. I show how it happens.
Right. Yeah, okay? We think, there's Napoleon Hill wrote a book and he said, Think and Grow Rich, and in Think and Grow Rich, and he says something in there, we are what we think about. We become what we think about. So
true. Very true. So basically, it's really a course that teaches how we create our reality without paying attention. So when you understand that, then you can create your reality purposefully. Okay. And also part of the course is really Kabbalah, and it brings texts from all the great Kabbalists, and it shows that how joy is really the ultimate tool to create a positive reality, like an enjoyable reality for oneself and for the collective, basically. So if people are interested, I'm willing to have the course in English. And how
do they get in touch with you?
I can give you my email.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's 2024 I am the change @gmail.com.
Okay. Say that one more time.
2024 in numbers. Okay. I am the change @gmail.com.
2024 I am the change @gmail.
Yes.
I'm going to get thousands of emails. So there you go. I just put that up in one of the chats. So, all right. Okay. Well, cool. Okay. So in closing, I'll let you finish and close it out because we're about at the top of the show. So you can close with your statements or whatever you want to close with. Go ahead.
Okay, I didn't prepare anything like that. I will say that I believe in human beings. I believe that we're created in the image of God, and I believe that we're good in essence, and that we're at a time when we have the possibility to get rid of the layers that cover this humanity that we carry with us, this divinity. And I think that we're at great times, and it really depends upon us. It depends on us to make the world that we all aspire to happen, to make this reality for all of us happen. It's really in our hands and in our minds, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's all about the people of the world, because
Yes.
people don't hate people. The governments make people hate people, right?
Exactly. And when we do the work, then, when we work with energy, then we have our power back, because energy is prior to matter. Energy creates, like matter is the crystallization of what we create with our thoughts.
Einstein said that, right?
Yofi, Jérôme, it was so nice that you had me on the show.
Well,
I really
thank you.
appreciate it. Really, it was a nice talk, and I'm happy I said what I said. Like, I feel good with the messages that I, put out, and I hope people are receive those messages, and that we can move forward and make a difference.
Thank you for coming on again. Even though it was a challenge at first, but it's been a few years now. But thank you, and and I would love to have you back on, of course, anytime you want to come on.
Thank
when you finish this next writing, about I Am the Change, and put it in English. Let us know. And
Okay.
people email you. We put the email up on there. But thank you so much. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your truths. Thank you for being honest here. On the show, and because that's what people need the most. People need honesty. People need the truth, because we don't get the truth.
I agree totally. That's why we have to more and more turn inward and get the truth from ourselves. We have to open other senses that we have to get information. Okay, not only through the news, but we know a lot of information. Like, we're connected to the field. The field holds all the information. The more we're pure inside, the more we have good intentions, the more we do good, we speak good, we think good, and the more we can be a conductor to the information that we want to receive.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Absolutely. So, well, thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, with pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.